of nature's most enchanting mysteries. For the next few minutes, let yourself drift. Let your breathing slow. Let the weight of the day fall away. We're going to explore something extraordinary together, the wonder of singing sands. Take a deep breath in and out. Feel yourself settling, becoming still. Now, close your eyes if you haven't already, and imagine standing in a vast desert. Picture it clearly. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. The air is perfectly still. Not a breath of wind. The dunes stretch out before you, endless waves of sand, frozen in time. And then, you hear it. A low hum, rising from the dunes themselves. It starts softly, almost below the threshold of hearing. But it grows. It swells. The sand is singing. This is not a dream. This is not fantasy. Singing sands are a real geological phenomenon. Documented. Studied. Experienced by countless travelers throughout history. When sand moves in just the right way, under just the right conditions, it produces audible sounds. Hums that vibrate through your chest. Squeaks that pierce the silence. Sometimes even booms, deep and resonant, that echo across the landscape. This isn't folklore. This isn't imagination. This is nature, singing. The earth itself, finding its voice. Pause for a moment, and consider how remarkable that is. Sand. Tiny grains of rock, worn down over millions of years. And yet, when they move together, they create music. The sounds can be surprisingly loud. So loud, in fact, that they've been heard kilometers away. Miles and miles of emptiness, and yet the desert speaks. Travelers have reported hearing these sounds when the source was far beyond the horizon. The sand itself becomes a voice, carrying across the stillness, reaching out into the void. Imagine standing alone, in the middle of nowhere, and hearing that sound rise up around you. Would you feel wonder? Or fear? Perhaps both. But what does it sound like? Well, that depends on who you ask. That depends on the sand, the moisture, the temperature, the way the grains move against each other. Each singing sand has its own voice. Some listeners compare the sound to cellos. Deep, resonant, almost mournful. Like a bow drawn slowly across strings, sustaining a single note that seems to last forever. Others hear the rumble of basses, that deep frequency you feel in your bones before you truly hear it. Still others describe it as pipe organs, those sustained notes that echo through cathedral spaces, filling every corner with sound. The kind of sound that makes you feel small and connected to something vast at the same time. And some compare it to distant thunder, rolling across an invisible horizon, coming from everywhere and nowhere. A sound that makes you look up at a clear sky and wonder. Let's travel back in time now. Let yourself drift backward through the centuries. Back to the 13th century. To a time of kingdoms and caravans, of spices and silk. Marco Polo, the great Venetian explorer, journeyed along the Silk Road. For years, he traveled. Through Persia. Through the mountains and deserts of Asia. He saw wonders that Europeans could barely imagine, and he wrote them down in accounts that still fascinate us today. In his writings, he described something extraordinary. Desert sands that sounded like drums, like the clashing of arms in battle. The sound of warfare rising from the earth itself. Imagine being a medieval traveler, far from home, weeks, maybe months, from the last familiar face. You're crossing a desert, beneath stars you've never seen before. And in the dead of night, you hear it. Drums. The clash of metal on metal. But there's no one there. No army. No battle. Just you, and the sand, and the sound. No wonder the desert inspired such awe. Such fear. Such reverence. The night grows darker in our imagination now. We move further east, to the Lop Desert of China. A place so remote, so barren, that even today it inspires caution. The ancients called it the Desert of Lop, and they spoke of it in hushed tones. Travelers reported something even more unsettling than sounds. At night, when the sands would sing, people would become disoriented, lost. Even experienced guides, people who knew the desert like their own hands, would lose their way. Confused by the very land they walked upon. Was it the sound playing tricks on their minds? Was it the way the noise seemed to come from all directions, making it impossible to navigate by hearing? Or was it something else entirely? Something about the frequency, the vibration, that affected human perception in ways we still don't fully understand? We may never know what those ancient travelers truly experienced. We can't step back into their sandals, see through their eyes, feel what they felt. But their accounts remain. Written warnings. Stories told around campfires. Memories passed down through generations. Let's shift our view now, westward, to the Arabian Peninsula. Land of endless sand and blazing sun. Land of date palms and oases. Of Bedouin tribes who knew every hidden water source, every safe passage through the dunes. The Arabian Peninsula developed its own explanations for the singing sands. In Arabian legends, the sounds weren't natural at all. They were attributed to spirits, to Djinn. Those powerful beings, formed from smokeless fire, who dwelled in the empty places of the earth. The Djinn were neither good nor evil, but they were powerful. And they were mysterious. They lived in the spaces between, in the ruins and the wastelands, in the deep desert where humans rarely ventured. When the sand sang, it was the Djinn speaking. A warning, perhaps. Or an invitation. A reminder that humans were not alone, even in the emptiest places. That the desert had its own inhabitants, its own rules, its own voice. Even today, in some parts of the Middle East, the old stories persist. The modern world, with all its explanations and science, hasn't entirely erased the wonder, the mystery. Now, let's cross an ocean. Let's travel to another continent entirely. To the Americas, where Native American peoples, long before European contact, had their own encounters with singing sands. They described roaring dunes as living beasts. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, but truly alive. The sand wasn't just sand. It was breathing. moving with intention, with purpose. Think about that for a moment. A dune, hundreds of feet high, tons and tons of sand, and it moves. It shifts. It speaks. To someone without modern geology, without particle physics, what else could it be but alive? These weren't just metaphors. They were ways of understanding a world that seemed to pulse with unseen forces. A world where everything, from the smallest stone to the largest mountain, might have spirit, might have voice. Even beaches, those gentler shores where waves meet land, have their folklore, have their mysteries. Squeaking sands, those that chirp and whistle underfoot when you walk across them, were linked in various cultures to lost lovers, to spirits who couldn't rest. The sound was their voice, calling out across time. A reminder of love that ended too soon, of promises unfulfilled, of longing that even death couldn't silence. Walk along a beach that squeaks, and you might be walking on memory itself, on emotion crystallized into sound. In classical Chinese literature, the singing dunes held a different meaning entirely. They weren't frightening. They weren't warnings. They were celestial, divine. The music of the heavens, made manifest in the physical world. The harmony of the spheres, that ancient idea that the cosmos itself is musical, expressed through sand and wind and sunlight. To hear the dunes sing was to hear the cosmos itself, expressing something beyond human language, beyond human understanding. It was a privilege, a blessing, a moment when the veil between worlds grew thin. Scholars would travel, sometimes for months, just to hear it, to stand in the presence of that sound, to feel connected to something infinite. All of these sounds, all of these stories, existed long before science ever tried to explain them. Long before anyone measured frequencies, or studied grain composition, or calculated angles of repose. They were feared. They were revered. They were woven into the fabric of human culture, in places separated by thousands of miles, and countless years. Different cultures, different languages, different beliefs, but the same wonder, the same awe. Because the earth spoke to them, and they listened. And that's where our journey truly begins. Not with answers, but with the mystery, with the wonder, with that ancient human impulse to listen to the earth and hear something more, something beyond explanation. Science will give us answers. It will help us understand the how. But these stories, these legends, they remind us of the why. Why we care. Why we listen. Why a singing sand can still take our breath away. Now that we've explored the mystery, the legends, the ancient wonder of singing sands, let's turn our attention to something equally fascinating. Where, exactly, do these remarkable places exist? Take a slow breath. Let yourself settle even deeper into relaxation. We're going on a journey around the world, but you don't need to move at all. Just listen. Here's something that might surprise you. Fewer than 100 dunes worldwide are known to produce strong booming sounds. Think about that for a moment. Our planet, with all its deserts, all its beaches, all its countless billions of tons of sand, and only a handful of places sing. fewer than 100. Out of all the dunes on Earth, all the Saharas and Gobis and Atacamas, all the coastal systems and barrier islands, just a small number have found their voice. It makes them rare, precious, special in a way that numbers can barely capture. Why so few? Well, we'll explore that question as we continue. But for now, just appreciate the rarity. If you've ever heard a singing sand, if you've ever stood in the presence of that sound, you've experienced something that most people, in all of human history, never will. Singing sands occur in different environments. They're not limited to one type of landscape, one climate, one corner of the world. They appear in deserts, those vast stretches of arid land where water is a distant memory. They appear on coastal beaches, where waves meet shore, where the rhythm of tides shapes everything. And they appear in dune systems, those sculpted hills of sand that shift and change with every wind. The variety is remarkable. From the driest places on Earth, to shores washed by ocean spray twice daily, the singing sands don't discriminate. Let's visit some of these places. Let's travel, in our minds, to the famous sites where the Earth has chosen to sing. First, China, the Middle Kingdom, land of ancient dynasties and timeless landscapes. Here, in Dunhuang, in Gansu Province, rises the Singing Sand Mountain, Mingsha Shan, as it's called in Mandarin. The name itself means singing sand. For over 1,000 years, maybe longer, people have journeyed to this place. Pilgrims, traders, travelers on the Silk Road. They've climbed the dunes, sometimes on hands and knees, feeling the sand shift beneath them. And they've listened, as the mountain sang. The sound there can be deep, resonant, like a low drone that vibrates through your entire body. On certain days, under certain conditions, dozens of people can trigger it at once. Sliding down the steep slip face, and the whole dune responds. The whole mountain hums. Imagine that. A mountain of sand, singing beneath a desert sky. Now let's travel eastward across the Pacific. To California. To the Mojave Desert. Here, among the creosote and the Joshua trees, among the lizards and the kit foxes, stand the Kelso Dunes. These dunes rise over 600 feet high. They're some of the tallest in North America. And they boom. Not always. Not for everyone. But when conditions are right, when the sand is dry and the slope is steep and someone, or something, sets the grains in motion, the dunes roar. People describe it as overwhelming. Visceral. Not just a sound you hear, but a sound you feel. In your chest. In your bones. A vibration that seems to come from the Earth's core itself. Hikers climb to the top. They slide down the faces. Sometimes, the dunes reward them with song. Sometimes, silence. The dunes, it seems, sing when they choose. But not all singing sands boom. Some whisper. Some squeak and chirp like playful spirits. Let's cross the Atlantic now. To Wales. To the western shores of the British Isles, where the Celtic Sea meets the land. Here, on the Llyn Peninsula, lies a beach with a charming name. Whistling sands. Porth Oer, in Welsh. Walk across this beach on a dry summer day, and the sand beneath your feet comes alive. Each step produces a squeak, a chirp, a sound like polystyrene, or cork, or leather rubbed just the right way. It's playful, almost musical. Children delight in it, running back and forth, making the beach sing with their footsteps. It's not the deep boom of the desert dunes, but it's no less magical, no less mysterious. These whistling and squeaking sands occur on beaches around the world. In Scotland, in Japan, in Hawaii. Each with their own particular voice, their own frequency, their own character. Some dunes, the really special ones, can boom repeatedly in a single afternoon. This is extraordinary, because the conditions have to align perfectly. The moisture content, the temperature, the angle of the slope, the size and shape of the individual grains. Everything has to be just right. And yet, some dunes manage it. Again and again. As if they're eager to be heard. As if they have something to say, and won't be silenced. Scientists have watched this happen. They've recorded it. They've measured it. A dune booming, then quieting, then booming again an hour later. Each performance slightly different. Each one unique. How do these rare places form? How does a dune become a singing dune? The answer stretches back through time. Thousands of years. Tens of thousands. Trade wind belts, those consistent wind patterns that circle the globe, help create ideal singing conditions over millennia. The same winds, blowing year after year, century after century, sort the sand. They carry away the finest particles. They polish the grains. They shape the dunes into just the right forms. It's a process that can't be rushed, can't be artificially created. It requires time, vast amounts of time, and the patient work of wind and sun and the slow chemistry of desert air. The trade winds blow. The sand responds. And over eons, a voice emerges. Even on beaches, the zones matter. Certain beaches only sing in very specific areas. You might walk along a shore for 100 meters and hear nothing. Then you step into a particular patch, and suddenly, the sand squeaks beneath you. Step out of that zone, silence again. Step back in, music. Scientists have mapped these zones, measured them, tried to understand why the sand sings here, but not there. Sometimes the difference is mere meters. One spot vocal, the next mute. As if the beach has drawn invisible boundaries, lines that only the sand understands. Not all singing sands sound the same. We've talked about booms and squeaks, but there's more variety still. Tropical dunes, in places like Hawaii, can emit higher-pitched sounds, almost like whines, or sustained notes from a flute. The warmth, perhaps. The different mineral content. The types of shells and coral mixed into the sand. All of these factors contribute to the voice. Each singing sand has its own acoustic signature, its own tone, its own timbre. If you could collect recordings from all the singing sands on Earth, you'd have a symphony. A global chorus, each voice distinct, each one irreplaceable. And here's something that stretches the imagination even further. Singing sands have even been discussed as a possibility on Mars. The red planet. That cold, dusty world, with dunes of its own. NASA scientists, studying images from Mars rovers and orbiters, have wondered. The dunes there are massive. The sand is different, basaltic, formed from ancient volcanic activity. But the physics might be similar. The conditions might align. Could Martian dunes sing? Could they boom under that thin atmosphere, beneath that butterscotch sky? We don't know. Not yet. But the fact that we're even asking the question shows how deeply these phenomena have captured our scientific imagination. Imagine a rover climbing a Martian dune. Its wheels setting off an avalanche of alien sand. And in the recording, transmitted back across millions of miles, a sound. A hum. A voice from another world. We're not there yet. But perhaps someday. Despite all this wonder, despite all these famous sights and scientific studies and legends and theories, here's a humbling truth. Most dunes remain completely silent. You can visit deserts all over the world. You can climb dunes in the Sahara, in the Arabian Peninsula, in the Australian outback. You can slide down their faces. You can disturb their surfaces. And you'll hear nothing. Just the whisper of sand, falling like water. Just the wind. Just silence. The singing dunes are the exception, not the rule. They are the rare ones, the special ones, the chosen few who found their voice. And perhaps that's part of their magic. If every dune sang, it wouldn't be remarkable. It would just be the way things are. But because they're rare, because you might travel the world and never hear one, each singing sand becomes precious. A gift. A wonder. A small miracle hiding in plain sight. So we've traveled the world together. From China to California. From Wales to the shores of imagination itself. We've heard booms and squeaks and whistles and whines. We've contemplated deserts and beaches. Earth and Mars, sound and silence. And through it all, one truth remains. The singing sands exist. They're real. And they're waiting for the right moment, the right conditions, the right listener to share their ancient song. We've explored the mystery, the wonder, the where. Now, let's venture into the how. What makes sand sing? What invisible forces, what precise conditions must align for the earth to find its voice? Take a deep breath. Settle in. Because we're about to discover that singing sand is far more particular, far more demanding than you might imagine. Let's start with the grains themselves. The individual particles. Tiny. Almost invisible to the naked eye. And yet, everything depends on them. For sand to sing, the grains must be well sorted. This is a geological term, but it means something beautifully simple. The grains need to be similar to each other. Not identical, but close. Very close. Within a narrow size range. Imagine a choir. If everyone sang a different note, at a different pitch, in a different key, you'd have chaos. Noise. But when voices align, when they harmonize, you get music. Sand is the same way. The grains need to be uniform, sorted by wind and time over thousands of years, until the too large and too small grains have been carried away. What remains is consistency, harmony, the potential for song. How narrow is this size range? Remarkably so. Typical grain sizes for singing sands fall between 0.1 and 0.5 millimeters. That's tiny. Smaller than a pinhead. About the width of a human hair, to maybe 5 times that width. 0.1 to 0.5 millimeters. That's the sweet spot. The zone where physics and friction and surface area all align in just the right way. Go smaller, and the grains don't have enough mass, enough momentum. They can't generate the vibrations needed. Go larger, and they're too heavy, too irregular. The delicate dance of grain against grain breaks down. 0.1 to 0.5. Remember that. The voice of the earth exists in that narrow window. But size alone isn't enough. The grains must also be highly rounded and smooth. Not angular. Not jagged. Not fresh from the crushing forces of geological violence. Rounded. Polished. Worn smooth by endless tumbling. By wind carrying them across dunes for centuries. By water, perhaps, rolling them along ancient riverbeds before the desert claimed the land. By time itself, gradually eroding every sharp edge, every rough surface. Think of river stones. How smooth they become. How pleasingly round. Sand grains and singing dunes have undergone the same transformation, but on a scale almost too small to see. Under a microscope, singing sand grains look like tiny pearls. Spherical. Smooth. Perfect. Each one polished by nature's patience, until it can slide against its neighbors, with minimal friction, with maximum efficiency. This smoothness is crucial. Because rough grains, angular grains, they lock together. They catch on each other. They resist movement. And without movement, without that collective sliding and shearing, there can be no sound. Now, here's where it gets even more particular. The sand must be extremely dry. Not just dry. Extremely dry. Desert dry. Bone dry. Dry in a way that coastal dwellers might struggle to imagine. Moisture is the enemy of singing sand. Even small amounts can silence the sound completely. Why? Because water, even just a thin film of it, acts like glue. It binds grains together, creates surface tension, makes the sand sticky, cohesive, reluctant to flow. Wet sand builds sandcastles, holds its shape. That's wonderful for children at the beach, but terrible for singing. Because singing requires flow, requires grains sliding freely against each other, millions of them moving in coordinated waves. Add moisture, and that coordination breaks down. The grains stick. They clump. The vibrations can't propagate. the sound dies. Scientists have tested this. They've taken sand from known singing dunes, measured its moisture content, found it incredibly low. Less than 1%. Sometimes, just a fraction of a percent. That's dry. Genuinely, profoundly dry. Then they've added water. Just a little. Sprayed a fine mist over the sand. And the singing stops. Immediately. Completely. As if someone flipped a switch. The same sand, the same grains, but now silent. It's remarkable how sensitive the phenomenon is. How precise the requirements are. Dust is another problem. Another contaminant that disrupts singing. You might think, dust is just very fine sand. What difference could it make? But it makes all the difference. Dust particles are much smaller than sand grains. They're irregular. They're diverse in composition. Clay particles, silt, microscopic fragments of rock and mineral. And when they infiltrate the spaces between sand grains, they interfere with the contact points, with the way grains touch and slide. Think of it like this. Imagine ball bearings rolling smoothly against each other. Now, introduce grit. Tiny particles of dirt. Suddenly, the motion isn't smooth anymore. There's catching, grinding, irregularity. Singing sand needs purity. Needs those grain-to-grain contacts to be clean, consistent, uncontaminated. Dust ruins that. Even a small amount can be enough to silence a dune. This is why singing sands are often found in specific environments. Places where wind constantly winnows away the finest particles. Where dust doesn't accumulate. Where the sand remains clean. Most singing sands, when analyzed, are rich in silica, silicon dioxide, quartz, the same mineral that makes up ordinary beach sand, sandstone, glass. Silica is hard, durable, resistant to weathering. It can be polished smooth, and it stays smooth. It doesn't flake or crumble easily. And importantly, it has certain acoustic properties. Certain ways of transmitting vibrations that softer minerals don't possess. Not all singing sands are pure silica. Some contain other minerals. Feldspar, magnetite, calcium carbonate from shells and coral. But silica is almost always the dominant component, the foundation of the sound. Here's something fascinating. Some singing sand grains, when examined under powerful microscopes, have a thin surface glaze. A coating made of silica and water, bonded at the molecular level. This glaze is incredibly thin, nanometers thick, almost nothing. And yet, it might be important. Scientists think it could affect the friction between grains, could influence how they vibrate, could contribute, in some subtle way, to the acoustic properties. It's one of those details that shows how complex this phenomenon really is. We're not just talking about sand sliding. We're talking about surface chemistry, molecular interactions, physics at the tiniest scales, producing effects we can hear and feel. Hot, sunny conditions enhance singing. This makes intuitive sense. Heat drives out moisture, keeps the sand dry, keeps it ready to sing. But it's more than just drying. Heat affects the sand in other ways too. It causes expansion, subtle changes in grain structure. It affects air temperature, and therefore air density, which influences how sound propagates. A dune on a hot afternoon, with the sun beating down, with surface temperatures exceeding 60 degrees Celsius, that's a dune primed to boom. The heat prepares it, makes it responsive, ready to release that deep, thrumming sound. Conversely, winter moisture often silences dunes completely. Even in deserts, where we think of perpetual dryness, winter can bring change. Dew forms on cold nights, frost in some regions, the occasional rain, and the sun in winter is weaker, lower in the sky. It doesn't drive moisture out as efficiently. So dunes that boom reliably in summer fall silent in winter. The sand is still there. The grains haven't changed, but the conditions have shifted, and the voice goes quiet. This seasonal variation has been documented at singing dune sites around the world. Summer, the dunes are vocal, responsive. Winter, they rest. They wait for the return of heat and dryness. It's almost as if the dunes have a cycle, a rhythm, active and dormant, speaking and silent, following the seasons like everything else on Earth. Let's pause and reflect on what all this means. The incredible specificity of the requirements, the narrow ranges, the sensitivity to moisture and dust and temperature. It explains why singing sands are so rare. Because all these conditions must align. The grains must be the right size, the right shape, the right composition. The environment must be right. The weather must cooperate. Remove any one factor, and the singing stops. Change any one variable beyond its threshold, and silence returns. It's humbling, really, that something as simple seeming as sand, making sound, requires such precision, such exact alignment of countless factors. But perhaps that's what makes it beautiful. The rarity, the fragility, the sense that we're witnessing something delicate, something that exists on a knife's edge between possible and impossible. The singing sands are not robust. They're not guaranteed. They're conditional, temporary, dependent on circumstances that can change with a single rainstorm. And yet, they persist. Year after year, century after century. The conditions align often enough. The dunes dry out and sing again. The cycle continues. It's a reminder that nature's wonders are often more fragile than we realize, more dependent on invisible factors, more remarkable precisely because they could so easily not exist at all. So now you know what makes sand sing. The sorted grains, the narrow size range, the smooth surfaces, the extreme dryness. the absence of dust, the silica content, the surface chemistry, the heat, the seasonality, all of it working together. A symphony of conditions producing a symphony of sound. Breathe that in. Let the knowledge settle. Appreciate the complexity hidden in simplicity. The requirements that most dunes will never meet. We've learned what makes sand special, what conditions must align. But now, we arrive at a critical moment. The moment when everything changes. When potential becomes actual. When silence becomes sound. Breathe slowly. Feel yourself sinking deeper into relaxation. We're about to explore the trigger, the spark, the moment the sand comes alive. Sound begins when sand starts moving. Not before, not in stillness, only in motion. This is fundamental, essential. A dune can have perfect grains, ideal dryness, flawless composition. But if it sits undisturbed, if nothing sets it in motion, it remains silent. Potential energy, waiting. A voice, unspoken. The sand must move, must flow, must shift and slide and cascade. Only then does the vibration begin. Only then does the earth find its voice. Think about that for a moment. All those silent dunes we mentioned before, they're not fundamentally different from singing dunes. They just haven't been asked to speak, haven't been disturbed in the right way. Or perhaps they lack just one critical ingredient, one missing piece in an otherwise perfect puzzle. But when singing sand moves, everything changes. In the desert, natural avalanches on dune slip faces trigger booming. Picture this. A massive dune, hundreds of feet high. The wind has been working on it for hours, days, weeks, carrying grains up the gentle windward slope, depositing them one by one on the crest. The lee side, the slip face, grows steeper and steeper. Grain by grain, the angle increases. The slope builds. The tension mounts. And then, inevitably, it fails. The angle becomes too steep. Gravity wins. And the sand begins to slide. It starts small. Maybe just a thin ribbon, a trickle. But it grows. More grains join the flow. The moving layer thickens, accelerates. What began as a whisper becomes a river, a torrent, an avalanche. And as it flows, as millions upon millions of grains slide together, coordinated, aligned, the dune booms. Deep, resonant, powerful. A sound you feel in your chest, in your bones, in the ground beneath your feet. This is how deserts sing. Spontaneously, naturally, without human intervention. The wind builds the slope, and gravity releases the song. But there are gentler triggers too. More intimate encounters. Human footsteps can cause squeaks on beaches. Imagine walking along a shore. The sun is warm. The sand is dry. Each step you take compresses the sand beneath your feet. Thousands of grains forced together, sliding against each other, shearing. And with each step, a sound, a squeak, a chirp, high-pitched, almost playful, like the sand is responding to your presence, acknowledging your touch. It's delightful. Children discover it instinctively. They stomp. They run. They make the beach sing with their footsteps, creating music just by walking, just by being present. The physics is the same as in the booming dunes. Grains moving, vibrating, but the scale is different. The frequency higher, the volume softer. Not a boom, but a whisper. Not thunder, but laughter. Let's return to the desert to understand the cycle, the building and the release. Wind is the architect, the patient sculptor of singing dunes. Wind piles sand until slopes reach about 35 degrees. This is the angle of repose for dry sand, the maximum stable angle, the point beyond which sand cannot resist gravity. 35 degrees. It's a specific number, a physical law. You can't make a stable pile of dry sand much steeper than this. It's written in the nature of friction, in the geometry of spheres, in the way grains can only support each other so far. The wind doesn't know this, doesn't care. It just keeps working, carrying grains, depositing them, building the slope higher, steeper. And when the slope exceeds that critical angle, when it reaches that threshold, the sand lets go. Once the slope fails, an avalanche begins. It might start with just a few grains, a small disturbance, maybe a gust of wind, maybe a lizard skittering across the surface, maybe nothing you could point to. Just the inevitable consequence of an unstable slope. Those first grains dislodge others, which dislodge still more. The motion propagates, spreads. What was stable moments ago suddenly isn't. And the sand flows. The flowing sand moves as a thin surface layer, not the entire dune, not deep into its structure, just the surface, maybe a few centimeters thick, maybe less. But that's enough, because it's not about volume. It's about motion, about grains, millions of them moving together, sliding past each other, creating friction, generating vibration. The bulk of the dune remains still, stable, supporting the moving layer above it, acting as a resonating chamber, perhaps, amplifying the vibrations, giving them depth, body, voice. Here's something important. Small slides remain silent. You can disturb a small patch of sand. Watch it trickle down. See individual grains tumble. And hear nothing. Just the soft hiss of sand settling. Small disturbances don't generate enough coordinated motion. Don't involve enough grains. don't reach the threshold, the critical point where individual vibrations synchronize, where chaos becomes harmony. But large, fast avalanches sing. This is the key. Size matters. Speed matters. Volume and velocity working together. A large avalanche involves millions of grains. Billions, perhaps. All moving. All shearing against each other. All contributing their tiny vibrations to a collective whole. And when it's fast, when it accelerates down a steep slope, the grains collide more frequently, more intensely. The friction increases. The energy transfer amplifies. Large and fast. Those are the magic words. The conditions that transform sand from material into music. Scientists have measured this. They've triggered avalanches of different sizes, different speeds. They've recorded the results. And the data is clear. There's a threshold. Below it, silence. Above it, song. A binary switch in the physics of sand. There is a minimum velocity threshold for sound. The sand must move fast enough, must flow with sufficient speed for the acoustic phenomenon to emerge. How fast is fast enough? It depends on the specific sand, the grain size, the slope angle, the conditions. But generally, we're talking about meters per second. Not slow, not gentle, but flowing with purpose, with energy. Below this threshold, below this critical velocity, energy dissipates silently. The grains still move, still slide, still create friction, but the vibrations don't organize, don't resonate, don't build into audible sound. The energy becomes heat, becomes random motion, becomes nothing you can hear. It's absorbed, scattered, lost to entropy. But cross that threshold, exceed that minimum velocity, and suddenly, coherence emerges. The vibrations align. They reinforce each other. They propagate. They escape the sand as pressure waves, as sound waves, as music. It's a phase transition of sorts, like water becoming ice, like a crowd of individuals suddenly moving as one. Below the threshold, disorder. Above it, order, pattern, voice. Think about what this means. The sand knows when it's moving fast enough. The physics knows. There's a built-in sensor, a natural threshold, below which the sand keeps its secrets, above which it sings. You can't coax sound from slow-moving sand. Can't whisper to it. Can't gently encourage it. You have to let it go. Let it accelerate. Let it flow with abandon. Only then will it respond. Only then will it give you its voice. This is why you can't manufacture a singing dune easily. Can't just pile up sand and expect it to perform. The sand must be right. The conditions must be right. And the motion, the trigger, must be right. It all has to align. The preparation and the release. The potential and the kinetic. The waiting and the moment. And when it does align, when all the factors converge, when the sand finally moves, fast enough, coordinated enough, the silence breaks. The air vibrates. And the earth sings. It's a birth, a becoming, a transformation from one state to another, from rest to resonance, from possibility to actuality. And it happens in an instant. One moment, silence. The next, sound. The threshold crossed. The voice released. Let that image settle in your mind. A dune poised, waiting, and then the trigger, the motion, the cascade, and suddenly, boom, the deep, thrumming voice of the earth itself. Or a beach, your foot pressing down, the grains shearing, and then squeak. That playful, high-pitched response. The sand acknowledging your presence. These are moments of transformation, of change, of the world revealing itself in unexpected ways. Breathe deeply now. Feel the stillness of your own body. You're not moving, not flowing, not sliding down any slopes. You're at rest, stable, silent. But you can imagine the motion, the energy, the threshold, the moment when everything changes. And you can appreciate that in stillness there is potential. In rest there is waiting. In silence there is the possibility of song. We've witnessed the moment when sand comes alive, when motion begins, when the threshold is crossed. But now, let's go deeper. Let's explore the invisible machinery, the elegant physics that transforms sliding sand into audible sound. Take a slow breath. Settle even further. We're entering the heart of the mystery, the science behind the song. Uniform grain sizes produce clear, single notes. Remember what we learned earlier about grains needing to be well sorted? Similar in size? This is where that requirement pays off. Acoustically, when all the grains are roughly the same size, they vibrate at roughly the same frequency. They resonate together, in harmony. The result is a pure tone, a single, clear note. Not a jumble of frequencies, but something clean, focused, musical. It's like a tuning fork. Strike it, and you get one frequency, one pitch, clear and unwavering. Singing sand with uniform grains works the same way. The uniformity creates unity, coherence, a voice that knows what it's saying. But mixed grain sizes can produce multiple tones. This is what happens when the sorting isn't perfect. When the sand contains grains of varying dimensions. Small ones, medium ones, larger ones, all mixed together. Each size wants to vibrate at its own frequency. The small grains, higher pitched. The larger grains, lower. And when they all move together, you get multiple frequencies. Multiple tones. Layered. Overlapping. It's still singing. Still remarkable. But it's different. Less pure. More complex. Like a chord instead of a single note. Like multiple instruments instead of one. This is part of why each singing sand sounds unique. The exact distribution of grain sizes, the particular mix, creates a particular voice. A fingerprint. Acoustic. Distinctive. Unrepeatable. Booming dunes typically emit sounds between 75 and 105 Hz. Let's pause on that. 75 to 105 Hz. That's low. Deep. In the bass register. For context, the lowest note on a piano is about 27 Hz. The lowest note most humans can sing comfortably is around 80 to 100 Hz. So booming dunes are singing in the range of a deep male voice, a bass, a cello's lower register. It's a frequency you feel as much as hear. It resonates in your chest cavity, your abdominal cavity, your bones. It's visceral, physical, not just sound, but sensation. This low frequency tells us something about the physics, about the size of the vibrating system, about the wavelength. Low frequencies require large vibrating structures, and dune avalanches are large, involving meters of flowing sand, thousands of kilograms in motion. The size matches the sound. The scale determines the pitch. But squeaking sands can reach thousands of hertz. Thousands. That's the opposite end of the spectrum. High. Bright. Almost piercing. For comparison, a piccolo plays around 4,000 Hz at its highest. A bird's chirp can exceed 8,000 Hz. Squeaking sand lives in this territory. The upper registers. The treble. Why so different from booming dunes? Because the scale is different. A footstep on a beach compresses a much smaller volume of sand. The vibrating layer is thinner. The grains often smaller. And physics dictates that smaller vibrating systems produce higher frequencies. Same phenomenon. Same basic mechanism. But different scales produce different voices. Deep booms and high squeaks. The earth singing soprano and bass. Now, let's zoom in. Down to the level of individual grains. Here's something counterintuitive. Individual grain collisions are too weak to hear alone. One grain hitting another grain. The impact does create a vibration, a tiny pressure wave, but it's minuscule, infinitesimal, far below the threshold of human hearing. Your ear couldn't possibly detect it, couldn't possibly respond. So how do we hear singing sand at all? If each grain is inaudible, how does the collective become loud enough to hear kilometers away? The answer is synchronization. Thousands of grains synchronize their motion. This is the key, the crucial insight, the moment when individual becomes collective, when separate becomes unified. In a flowing avalanche, grains don't move randomly, don't collide haphazardly. Instead, they organize. They fall into patterns, waves of motion that propagate through the flowing layer. Think of it like a standing ovation. One person clapping, barely audible. But when hundreds clap together, when they synchronize, the sound becomes overwhelming, deafening. The individual contributions, some reinforce, amplify. Grains and singing sand do the same thing. They move together, collide together, vibrate together, and their individual, inaudible contributions add up, constructively interfere, build into something powerful. This synchronized layer vibrates like a loudspeaker diaphragm. Picture a speaker cone. It moves back and forth, rapidly, pushing air, creating pressure waves. That's how sound is generated in every speaker you've ever heard. The flowing layer of sand does the same thing. It's not solid, but it behaves as a coherent surface, moving, vibrating, oscillating at a specific frequency. And as it moves, it pushes the air above it, compresses it, rarefies it, creates waves. It's remarkable, really, that loose grains, flowing downhill, can organize themselves into something resembling a mechanical device, a vibrating membrane, a sound-producing apparatus. Nature invented the speaker long before humans did. These vibrations push air, creating audible sound. The air molecules don't travel far. They just jostle, compress, expand, pass the vibration from molecule to molecule, like a wave traveling through water, but the water itself stays put. Only the wave travels. Only the pattern propagates. And when that pattern reaches your ear, your eardrum vibrates. Your cochlea responds. Your brain interprets. And you hear the boom, the squeak, the song. From sand, through air, to perception. The chain is complete. Here's something elegant. The wavelength often matches the flowing layer thickness. This is called resonance. When the physical dimensions of a vibrating system match the wavelength of the sound it produces, you get amplification, efficiency, maximum sound output. Think of an organ pipe. Its length determines its pitch. The wavelength of the sound fits perfectly inside the pipe. That's why organs sound so powerful, so efficient. Singing sand achieves the same thing. The thickness of the flowing layer, typically a few centimeters, corresponds to the wavelength of the sound produced. The low frequencies of booming dunes have wavelengths measured in meters. But the effective vibrating layer creates harmonics, resonances, that amplify specific frequencies. It's as if the sand knows its own dimensions. knows what frequency it should produce, and tunes itself accordingly. The resulting tone has remarkable harmonic stability. Scientists have recorded singing dunes and analyzed the audio, and what they find is striking. The frequency stays constant, doesn't waver, doesn't drift, even as the avalanche continues, even as conditions change slightly. A pure tone, stable, unwavering, for seconds, sometimes even minutes. The sand holds its note, like a trained singer, like a well-tuned instrument. This stability is unusual in nature. Most natural sounds are noisy, complex, full of transients and variations. Wind doesn't maintain a constant pitch. Water flowing changes tone constantly. Even animal calls warble and shift. But singing sand, when conditions are right, produces something almost artificial in its purity. Almost electronic. A sine wave. Clean. Perfect. Unchanging. It's this purity, this stability, that makes the sound so eerie, so otherworldly. Because our brains expect natural sounds to be messy, variable. And when we encounter something so pure, so constant from a natural source, it seems impossible, supernatural. But it's not. It's just physics. Beautiful, elegant, precise physics. The self-organization of countless individual grains into a coherent, vibrating system. A natural oscillator. A geologic instrument. Let's take a moment to appreciate the elegance. The simplicity that produces complexity. Individual grains, too small to see clearly, too weak to hear individually. But together, synchronized, organized by nothing more than gravity and friction and the laws of motion, they create music. No conductor, no instructions, no intelligence guiding them. Just physics. Just the inevitable consequences of particles interacting. Following rules they don't know they're following. And yet, the result is beautiful, harmonious, stable, pure. It's a reminder that beauty doesn't require intention. That music can emerge from mathematical necessity. That the universe, following its own laws, creates wonders without trying. The singing sands don't know they're singing, don't choose to produce sound. They're just being sand, following the rules of friction and gravity and wave mechanics. And in following those rules, they sing. They resonate. They speak in frequencies we can hear, in tones that move us. Breathe that in. Let it settle. The physics and the poetry. The mechanism and the magic. Both real. Both true. Both inseparable. The song is physics. And physics is the song. Rest now. Let your mind drift through the concepts. Synchronization, resonance, wavelength, frequency, harmonic stability. You don't need to understand every detail. You don't need to calculate the wavelengths. Just appreciate that they exist, that they align, that they work together to create something beautiful, something remarkable, something that sounds like the earth itself finding its voice. We've explored the surface, the grains, the physics of vibration. But now, let's venture inside, beneath the flowing surface, into the hidden architecture of the dune itself. Because singing isn't just about what moves. It's also about what stays still. Breathe slowly, deeply. We're going underground, into the structure, into the body of these living sculptures of sand. Large dunes with tall slip faces sing best. This is an observation made again and again. The biggest dunes, the most dramatic ones, produce the most powerful sounds. The deepest booms, the most resonant tones. Why? Because size matters. A tall slip face means a long slope, which means when sand starts to flow, it has space to accelerate, to build speed, to cross that velocity threshold we discussed earlier, to achieve the conditions necessary for sound. A small dune with a short slope doesn't give the sand enough distance, enough time. The avalanche starts, but ends before it can truly sing, before it can organize, before the synchronization can fully develop. But a tall dune, a slip face that drops 50, 70, 100 feet, that's different. That's a runway, a launching pad, a space where gravity can do its work, where sand can flow and flow and flow, building energy, building coherence, building voice. The tallest dunes are the loudest singers, the most reliable, the most powerful. They have what smaller dunes simply cannot achieve: space, height, potential. Crescent and star dunes are common singers. These are specific dune shapes, morphologies, forms that wind sculpts sand into over centuries. Crescent dunes, called barcans, have that classic dune shape. Horns pointing downwind, a curved slip face. They're beautiful, symmetrical, and they often sing. Star dunes are more complex. Multiple arms radiating from a central peak. Multiple slip faces. They form where wind comes from different directions, where the sand builds upward rather than just migrating. These too often sing. Their multiple faces providing multiple opportunities for avalanches, for sound. The shape matters, because shape determines how wind interacts with the dune, where sand accumulates, how steep the slopes become, where and how often avalanches occur. Not all dune shapes sing equally. Linear dunes, long ridges parallel to the wind, tend to be quieter. Dome dunes, rounded without sharp slip faces, rarely sing at all. The geometry influences the acoustics. The form shapes the function. Inside the dune, beneath the surface we see, there is structure. Internal layering. Crossbedding, geologists call it. Layers of sand, deposited at different times, in different conditions, now buried, preserved, within the dune's body. This internal layering guides vibration travel. The layers aren't uniform. Some are slightly more compacted. Some contain grains of slightly different sizes. Some were deposited dry, others when moisture was present. And these differences, subtle as they are, affect how vibrations propagate. How waves travel through the dune's interior. Some layers transmit vibrations easily. Others dampen them, absorb them. The internal structure becomes an acoustic filter, a resonance chamber, a three-dimensional instrument. Scientists have used ground-penetrating radar to peer inside dunes, to see these layers, to map the internal architecture. And they've found that singing dunes often have more regular layering, more uniform internal structure than silent dunes. The organization goes all the way through, not just on the surface, but deep inside, as if the entire dune has been tuned, prepared, made ready to resonate. Smooth slip faces allow uniform flow layers. This is crucial. Remember, the flowing sand moves as a thin surface layer. For this layer to synchronize, to vibrate coherently, the surface it flows over must be smooth. Irregularities, disruptions, bumps and hollows break up the flow, create turbulence, prevent the uniform shearing motion that generates sound. A rough slip face might trigger avalanches, but they'll be chaotic, disordered, silent. But a smooth slip face, swept clean by previous avalanches, polished by wind, provides the perfect stage, the perfect canvas for the flowing sand to perform, to organize, to sing. Nature smooths these faces. Wind erases footprints, fills in irregularities, prepares the surface for the next avalanche. It's a continuous process. Erosion and deposition, roughening and smoothing. The dune maintaining itself, preparing for the next song. Sound often projects downslope more strongly. If you stand at the base of a booming dune, while an avalanche occurs above, the sound can be overwhelming, immersive, all-encompassing. But stand to the side, or upslope, and the volume drops. The sound is directional, focused, like a spotlight, but made of acoustic energy. Why? Because the vibrating layer of flowing sand acts like a directional speaker. The waves it generates propagate most efficiently in the direction the sand is flowing. Downslope, downhill, following gravity's pull. The dune doesn't broadcast equally in all directions. It aims, projects, throws its voice like a singer facing the audience. Maximum effect in the intended direction. Accelerometers detect surface and bulk vibration modes. Scientists studying singing sands don't just use their ears. They use instruments, sensors, devices that measure acceleration, vibration, motion, and what they've discovered is fascinating. There are multiple modes of vibration. The surface vibrates one way. The bulk of the dune vibrates another. Different frequencies, different amplitudes, different patterns. The surface mode is what we hear. The high-frequency vibration of the flowing layer. But the bulk mode is deeper, slower. The entire dune resonating, responding to the surface disturbance. Like a drum head and the air inside the drum. Both vibrating, both contributing. These measurements reveal that the dune is not passive, not just a stage. It participates, responds. The whole structure comes alive, becomes part of the instrument. Radar reveals structural differences between singing and silent dunes. Ground-penetrating radar, seismic surveys, technologies that see beneath the surface, that map the invisible, and the images show differences. Singing dunes tend to have more uniform internal density, more regular layering, fewer disruptions. Silent dunes are messier, more variable, less organized internally. It's as if singing dunes have been sorted, not just on the surface, but throughout their entire volume, prepared by wind and time to resonate. While silent dunes haven't undergone that refinement, haven't achieved that level of organization. The ability to sing isn't just skin deep. It goes all the way through. Here's something surprising. Some dunes lose singing ability after repeated avalanches. You'd think the more they sing, the better they'd get. The more practiced, the more refined. But sometimes the opposite happens. A dune that boomed reliably for years gradually falls silent. The avalanches continue. The sand still flows, but the sound diminishes, weakens, eventually stops. Why? Scientists think it's about disruption. Each avalanche rearranges the surface, mixes layers, introduces irregularities. And if avalanches happen too frequently, if the dune doesn't have time to recover, to resort itself, the damage accumulates. The smooth surface becomes rough. The uniform layers become mixed. The careful organization that took centuries to develop gets scrambled. And the voice fades. It's fragile. More fragile than we might think. The singing can be lost. The ability erased. By nothing more than too much activity. Too much disturbance. But there's hope. Wind resorting restores singing over time. If the dune is left alone, if the avalanches cease, if wind is given time to work its magic, the singing can return. Wind is the great organizer, the patient sculptor. It carries away the finest grains, leaves the uniform ones, smooths the surface, rebuilds the layers, slowly, grain by grain, season by season, year by year. And eventually, the dune recovers. The organization returns. The conditions realign. And one day, triggered by the right disturbance, the dune sings again. It's a cycle. Singing in silence. Organization and disruption. Loss and recovery. The dune breathing. Living. Changing, but enduring. Dunes act as natural acoustic systems. This is the culmination, the synthesis, of everything we've learned. The grains, the layers, the structure, the vibration, all of it working together as a system, an instrument, not designed, not built, but evolved, shaped by natural forces over vast stretches of time into something that functions, that performs, that produces organized sound. Music. Think of a violin. The strings vibrate, but without the body, the resonating chamber, the carefully shaped wood, the sound would be thin, weak. The body amplifies, enriches, gives character. Dunes do the same. The flowing surface layer is the string, but the dune body, the internal structure, the layering and density variations, that's the resonance chamber. That's what gives the sound its depth, its power, its character. A natural acoustic system, as elegant as anything humans have designed, and more ancient than any human instrument. Let that sink in. These structures, built by wind, shaped by time, organized by physics, function as instruments, produce music without intention, without design, just natural law playing out. Inevitable, beautiful. We've explored the phenomenon, the physics, the structure. But how do we know all of this? How have scientists unraveled these mysteries? Let's enter the laboratory, the field station, the places where curiosity meets method, where wonder becomes knowledge. Breathe deeply. Settle in. We're about to witness the science behind the discovery. Researchers recreate avalanches in laboratories because nature, as beautiful as it is, doesn't always cooperate. You can't schedule a dune avalanche, can't control the conditions, can't repeat the experiment exactly the same way twice. So scientists bring the sand indoors. They build containers, drums, channels, carefully controlled environments where they can trigger avalanches on demand, where they can measure, record, analyze. It's not the same as standing in the Mojave, feeling the ground shake beneath you. But it allows precision, repeatability, the ability to change one variable and see what happens, to isolate what matters. They fill these containers with sand collected from singing dunes. Real sand, transported carefully, preserved, kept dry. Each grain a tiny piece of the desert, now serving science. And they make it flow. Make it slide. Make it sing. Even indoors. Even in small quantities. The phenomenon persists. The physics remains. And the measurements begin. Rotating blades generate controlled shear. This is one technique. Ingenious. Simple. A drum filled with sand. Blades inside that rotate. As they turn, they drag the sand. Create shear. Make the grains slide past each other. It's not quite like a natural avalanche. The geometry is different. The scale smaller. But the fundamental process, grain shearing grain, is the same. And remarkably, the sand sings. Even in this artificial setup. Even under these strange conditions. The rotating blades allow scientists to control the shear rate. How fast the grains move. How much force is applied. They can dial it up or down. Find the threshold. Map the boundaries between silence and sound. Shear depth affects tone stability. This is one discovery from these experiments. The depth of the shearing layer, how thick it is, influences how stable the tone remains. How pure. How consistent. Too shallow, and the sound wavers. Fluctuates. Breaks up. The synchronization doesn't fully develop. Too deep, and other effects emerge. Complexity. Multiple modes. The purity diminishes. But at just the right depth, typically a few centimeters, the tone locks in. Becomes stable. Unwavering. The sweet spot, where everything aligns. Where the physics optimizes itself. It's another example of how precise the requirements are. Not just grain size. Not just moisture. But also the geometry of flow. The depth of shearing. Every detail matters. But laboratories aren't enough. Scientists also go to the dunes themselves. With equipment. Instruments. Sensors. To measure in the wild. In the real environment where complexity cannot be avoided. Geophones measure vibrations inside dunes. These are sensors. Seismometers, essentially. Designed to detect ground motion. Earthquakes. Tremors. But sensitive enough to pick up the vibrations of singing sand. Researchers bury these sensors. Push them into the dune. At different depths. Different locations. Creating a network. An array. And then they trigger avalanches. Or wait for natural ones to occur. And they record every vibration, every oscillation, building a picture of how the dune vibrates, how energy propagates, how different parts respond differently. The surface versus the interior. The slip face versus the core. The data is complex, rich, revealing. It shows that the dune doesn't vibrate uniformly. Different regions have different modes. different frequencies. It's orchestrated, coordinated, a symphony of mechanical motion. High-speed video syncs grain motion to sound. Cameras, sophisticated ones, capable of capturing thousands of frames per second. So fast that individual grains can be tracked, their paths traced, their interactions observed. Scientists film avalanches, zooming in, focusing on small patches of flowing sand. And they synchronize the video with audio recordings, aligning what they see with what they hear. And patterns emerge. The grains don't move randomly. They form waves, bands of motion, regions of high density and low density, traveling through the flowing layer, repeating, regular, rhythmic. These density waves correlate with the sound. When a compression wave passes, a pulse of sound emerges. The visual and the acoustic are linked, synchronized. Different expressions of the same underlying dynamics. It's mesmerizing, beautiful, watching the grains dance, seeing the patterns that create the sound, understanding visually what was previously only heard. But to truly understand grain-level interactions, scientists turn to simulation. Discrete element simulations model grain behavior. These are computer programs, calculations, where every grain is represented, tracked, its position, velocity, forces. The computer applies the laws of physics, collision, friction, gravity, and steps forward in time. Over and over, millions of calculations, simulating what happens when thousands of grains flow together. It's not perfect. The simulations make approximations, simplifications, but they reveal things that experiments cannot. The forces between individual grains, the stress chains, the collective motions that emerge from simple rules. And the simulations sing. Virtual sand, producing virtual sound, matching remarkably well the real thing. It's confirmation, validation, that we understand, at least in broad strokes, what's happening. Some experiments are more exotic, more extreme. Cryogenic experiments isolate humidity effects. Scientists freeze sand, cool it to extreme temperatures, where any trace moisture turns to ice, becomes solid, inert, and then they test it, make it flow, see if it sings. And it does, even frozen, even at temperatures far below anything a natural dune experiences. The sound persists. This proves that moisture itself isn't directly part of the mechanism. The water molecules don't have to be liquid, don't have to flow. They just need to be absent or locked away, unable to create surface tension, unable to glue grains together. It's a clever experiment, using cold to answer questions about dryness, using extremes to isolate variables. Science at its creative best. And there are stranger analogs still. Submerged hydrophones detect underwater analogs. Scientists have found that some underwater sediments can produce sound when disturbed, when they flow down underwater slopes. Not the same as desert sand. Different grains, different fluids, water instead of air, but similar physics, similar synchronization, similar acoustic emission. They place hydrophones, underwater microphones, near these sites, and they record turbidity currents, underwater avalanches, and sometimes they hear it. A hum, a drone, the underwater singing. It broadens our understanding, shows that this phenomenon isn't unique to deserts, isn't even unique to air. It's a more general principle. Whenever particles of the right characteristics flow together, sound can emerge. The universe is full of singing. We just have to listen. At the smallest scales, nanoscale imaging reveals microroughness. Electron microscopes, atomic force microscopes, instruments that see what eyes cannot. The surface texture of individual grains, down to nanometers, billionths of a meter. And what they find is surprising. Singing sand grains aren't perfectly smooth. Not at the nanoscale. They have texture, tiny asperities, minute roughness, patterns etched by chemical weathering, by wind-blown impacts, by eons of environmental exposure. This micro-roughness might matter, might affect how grains grip each other, how they slide, the friction at the most intimate level, where grain touches grain, where the physics truly happens. It's a frontier, a cutting edge, where materials science meets geophysics, where the very small explains the very large, where nanometers of texture produce sounds heard for kilometers. And here's a key finding. From all these studies, all these methods, all these approaches, grain friction is measurably lower in singing sands. This has been tested, measured, compared. Take sand from a singing dune. Measure the coefficient of friction, the resistance to sliding. Then, take sand from a nearby silent dune. Measure it the same way. The singing sand has lower friction. Not by much, but measurably, consistently. The grains slide more easily, more smoothly, against each other. Lower friction means less energy lost to heat, more energy available for vibration, for sound. It's more efficient, like a well-oiled machine versus a rusty one. And why is the friction lower? The roundness, the smoothness, the silica coating, the absence of dust, all the factors we've discussed. They don't just affect whether the sand can sing. They affect how efficiently energy converts to sound. Singing sands are optimized, not by design, but by selection, by the slow work of natural processes, filtering out what doesn't work, leaving only what does. Let's pause and appreciate the ingenuity, the creativity, the persistence of the scientists who've devoted years, decades, to understanding this phenomenon, who've built instruments, designed experiments, traveled to remote deserts, analyzed millions of grains, all to answer a simple question: why does sand sing? And in seeking that answer, they've revealed layers of complexity, depths of beauty, connections between the very small and the very large, between nanoscale roughness and kilometer-scale sound. Science, at its best, is like this: curiosity meeting method, wonder meeting rigor, the desire to understand paired with the tools to discover. And the singing sands have proven worthy subjects. They've challenged, surprised, rewarded those who study them with insights, with data, with mysteries that lead to deeper mysteries. Breathe now. Let the knowledge wash over you. The laboratories, the field sites, the simulations and sensors, the dedication to understanding, to knowing. You don't need to remember every detail, every technique. Just appreciate that people have worked, have wondered, have sought to understand. And slowly, piece by piece, grain by grain, they have. The mystery remains beautiful, but it's less mysterious now, less opaque. We can see into it, through it. We can trace the causal chains, from moisture to friction, from grain size to frequency, from sheer depth to tone stability. And yet, even understanding doesn't diminish the wonder, doesn't make the experience of hearing a singing dune less profound. If anything, it deepens it. Because now we know how extraordinary, how precise, how unlikely it all is. We've seen the experiments, the measurements, the discoveries. But science isn't a straight path, isn't a simple accumulation of agreed-upon facts. It's messy, contentious, full of disagreement and debate. And the singing sands are no exception. Take a slow breath. Relax even deeper. Because we're entering the realm of uncertainty, where experts disagree, where questions have multiple answers, where the truth remains elusive. Some argue sound comes from air squeezed between grains. This is one camp, one theory, one way of explaining the phenomenon. The idea is that as grains collide, as they press together, they trap air. Tiny pockets between the particles. And when the grains separate, that air is released, expelled, creating pressure waves. Like squeezing a balloon, like clapping your hands. The air compressed and released over and over. millions of times per second, creating sound. It's intuitive, elegant. The grains, as tiny air pumps, working together in synchrony, generating acoustic waves through rapid compression cycles. But others say the flowing surface acts as a vibrating membrane. This is a different theory, a competing explanation. They argue that the air isn't the primary mechanism. Instead, the entire surface layer, the flowing sand itself, vibrates as a coherent sheet, like a drumhead, like a speaker cone, moving up and down, back and forth, as a unit. And this vibrating membrane pushes air, displaces it, creates sound waves through bulk motion, not through tiny pockets, but through large-scale oscillation. The evidence? Mathematical models, measurements of surface motion, calculations that show this mechanism can produce the observed frequencies, the observed amplitudes. Two theories, both plausible, both supported by some data, both challenged by other data. Which is right? Perhaps both. Perhaps neither. Perhaps the truth is more complex than either can capture. Shear rate theories compete with resonance models. Here's another divide, another area of disagreement. Some scientists focus on the rate of shearing, how fast grains slide. They argue that when the shear rate reaches a critical value, instabilities emerge. Stick-slip behavior, oscillations, like rubbing your finger on a wet glass. It squeaks, not because the glass is special, but because, at a certain speed, friction becomes unstable. Alternates between sticking and slipping, creating vibration, creating sound. Applied to sand, the theory says fast shearing creates these instabilities. The grains stick briefly, then slip, stick, slip, rhythmically. And this rhythm produces sound. But resonance models take a different approach. They emphasize the natural frequencies, the modes that the dune system wants to vibrate at, based on its size, its structure, its material properties. Like a bell has a natural ringing frequency. Strike it and it vibrates at that frequency. Regardless of how you strike it, the resonance is inherent, built into the system. Applied to dunes, these models suggest that once you trigger flow, the system locks into its natural resonant mode. The frequency is determined by dune properties, not by shear rate, not by grain interactions, but by the system as a whole. Again, two perspectives, both mathematical, both grounded in physics, both explaining some observations, both failing to explain others. Some data challenges grain size dominance. Remember, we said grain size was crucial. That uniform grains produce clear tones. That size determines frequency. This is the conventional wisdom. the accepted view. But some researchers have found exceptions. Dunes with mixed grain sizes that still produce pure tones. Beaches with irregular particles that squeak reliably. Cases where grain size alone doesn't predict singing ability. These outliers are troubling, uncomfortable. They suggest that our understanding is incomplete. That grain size, while important, isn't everything. That other factors we haven't identified or haven't appreciated also play critical roles. Science advances by attending to exceptions, to anomalies, to the data that doesn't fit. These outliers aren't errors. They're clues. Hints that we're missing something. That the picture is more complex than we thought. Field results sometimes contradict lab experiments. This is a common problem. A persistent tension. What works in controlled conditions doesn't always work in nature. And vice versa. Sand that sings beautifully in the desert falls silent in the laboratory. Even when conditions seem identical. Even when moisture is controlled. Temperature regulated. Shear rate matched. Something is different. Something about the natural environment that we haven't captured. Haven't reproduced. Some variable we're not measuring. Or not controlling. Or not even aware of. And sometimes the opposite happens. Sand that's silent in nature sings readily in laboratory setups. The artificial conditions somehow enable what nature prohibits. It's humbling, frustrating, a reminder that nature is always more complex than our models, always surprising us, always exceeding our grasp. Dune-wide waveguide theories persist. Here's another idea. Another model. Some researchers propose that the entire dune acts as a waveguide. A channel for acoustic energy. Like an optical fiber guides light. Like a pipe guides water. The sound doesn't just radiate outward. It travels through the dune structure, through the layers, reflecting, refracting, being shaped by the internal geometry, and then emerges, amplified, directed. This would explain the directional nature of the sound, the way it projects downslope, the characteristic frequencies matching dune dimensions. It makes the dune not just a resonator, but an acoustic instrument, actively shaping the sound. But proving this is difficult. It requires detailed measurements inside the dune, at multiple locations, simultaneously. Expensive, logistically challenging, and the results so far are ambiguous, suggestive but not definitive. So the theory persists, neither proven nor disproven, waiting for better data, better experiments, waiting for technology to catch up with ideas. Peer review disputes have shaped the field. Science is a human endeavor, and humans disagree. sometimes civilly, sometimes not. Papers are published, critiqued, challenged, defended. One research group claims a breakthrough. Another publishes a rebuttal, pointing out flaws, alternative explanations, questioning methods, questioning conclusions. The first group responds, defends their work, attacks the critics. It can get heated, personal even. Reputations are at stake. Funding, career advancement. The singing sands may seem like a niche topic, an obscure phenomenon. But for those who study it, it's everything. It's their life's work. And so they fight, not with fists, but with equations, with data, with carefully worded but sharply pointed academic prose, published in journals, debated at conferences, argued over for years. This process can seem ugly, dysfunctional, but it's also how science works, how errors are caught, how weak ideas are winnowed out, how the robust ones survive, tempered by criticism, strengthened by defense. No single model explains all dunes. This is the uncomfortable truth, the reality that researchers must accept. We have theories, we have data, we have insights, but we don't have a unified theory, a complete explanation. Some dunes fit one model, others fit another. Some don't fit any model particularly well. The phenomenon is heterogeneous, variable, context-dependent. Different sands, different climates, different dune geometries, all producing sound, but perhaps through slightly different mechanisms, or emphasizing different aspects of a common mechanism. It's like trying to explain music. You can talk about vibrating strings, about resonating chambers, about harmonics and overtones, but a violin and a guitar and a piano all work differently. All produce music, but through distinct physical arrangements. Maybe singing sands are the same. A family of related phenomena, sharing principles, but differing in details. No single explanation could capture them all, because they're not all the same. The precise microscopic mechanism remains unsettled. At the finest scale, the grain-to-grain interactions, the exact way friction converts to vibration, the role of surface coatings, the importance of nanoscale texture, how synchronization actually emerges. These questions are still open, still debated. We have hypotheses, we have simulations, we have measurements, but definitive proof, conclusive understanding eludes us. The microscopic details remain somewhat mysterious. And perhaps that's okay. Perhaps it's even appropriate. That something as beautiful as singing sand retains some mystery, some uncertainty, some unknowing. Because mystery drives science. Uncertainty motivates research. The unanswered questions are what keep scientists returning to the field, building new instruments, designing new experiments, asking again and again, why? Singing sands remain an active research puzzle, not a solved problem, not a closed book, but an ongoing investigation. Papers are still being published. Conferences still feature debates. Graduate students still choose this topic for their dissertations. The phenomenon continues to fascinate, to challenge, to reward those who study it with moments of insight, flashes of understanding, and always new questions, deeper mysteries. It's alive. This field of study, growing, evolving, changing as new evidence emerges, as new technologies enable new measurements, as new minds bring new perspectives. And that's beautiful. In its own way. The scientific process, the collective effort, the gradual approach toward truth, never arriving, never complete, but always moving forward. Let this uncertainty wash over you now, like waves, like shifting sand. Nothing is final, nothing is certain. The experts disagree. The data is incomplete. The truth is elusive. But the search continues. The wonder persists. And in the not knowing, there is a strange comfort. Because it means there's still more to discover. Still mysteries to solve. Still questions that no one can yet answer. Breathe deeply. Let your mind rest in uncertainty. In the space between theories, where multiple explanations coexist, where the truth is complex, subtle, refusing to be reduced to a single simple story. The singing sands keep their secrets, even from scientists, even from those who study them for lifetimes. They sing, we listen, we measure, we theorize, but the full truth, the complete understanding, remains just out of reach. Like sand slipping through fingers, like sound fading into distance, present, real, tangible, but never quite grasped. We've explored the mystery, the science, the debates. But now, let's ask a different question. A practical one. Why does this matter? Beyond curiosity, beyond wonder, what difference does singing sand make to the world? Breathe slowly. Settle in. Because we're about to discover that this obscure phenomenon, this rare occurrence, reaches farther than you might imagine. Engineers study singing sands to prevent silo vibrations. This is real. This is practical. This saves lives. Industrial silos, grain elevators, storage tanks filled with powder, with pellets, with granular materials. Sometimes these silos vibrate, shake, hum. The stored material starts flowing and sound emerges. Vibration. Strong enough, in some cases, to damage the structure, to crack walls, to cause catastrophic failure. People have died. Buildings have collapsed. Because flowing granular materials behaved unexpectedly, created vibrations no one anticipated, no one understood, until someone made the connection. This is like singing sand. The same physics, the same synchronization, the same conversion of flow energy into acoustic energy, into vibration. By studying singing dunes, engineers learned how to predict when silos might vibrate, what conditions trigger it, what grain properties, what flow rates, what geometries are dangerous. And they learned how to prevent it, how to disrupt the synchronization, add baffles, mix grain sizes, control moisture, break up the coherent flow that produces vibration. Singing sand, a curiosity of nature, became a life-saving tool. Knowledge that protects, that prevents disaster. Pharmaceutical mixers avoid uniform singing grains. In drug manufacturing, precision matters. Powders must be mixed uniformly, thoroughly. The active ingredient distributed evenly through the inactive base. But if the particles are too uniform, too similar in size, too rounded, they can synchronize, can vibrate, can produce unwanted acoustic emissions, unwanted vibrations. This affects the mixing, creates patterns, non-uniformities, regions where the drug is too concentrated or too dilute, making the medicine unreliable, potentially dangerous. So pharmaceutical engineers apply lessons from singing sand. They deliberately vary particle sizes, add irregularities, prevent the synchronization, ensure that the powder flows silently, chaotically, mixing as it should. A curious natural phenomenon becomes a manufacturing guideline, protecting patients, ensuring drug quality. Seismic surveys must filter dune noise. Oil exploration, earthquake monitoring, understanding Earth's interior, all rely on seismic measurements, detecting vibrations, analyzing waves traveling through rock. But in desert regions, dunes can be a problem. They vibrate spontaneously. Wind-triggered avalanches, creating seismic signals. Background noise that obscures what geophysicists are trying to measure. An oil survey might detect a signal. Is it a reflection from a deep reservoir? Or just a nearby dune avalanching? The frequencies can overlap. The signatures can be similar. So seismologists study singing dunes, learn their acoustic fingerprint, their characteristic frequencies, their patterns, and they develop filters, algorithms that can distinguish dune signals from signals of interest. Singing sand becomes something to subtract, to remove, to filter out, so the real data can emerge, clear, unobscured. Granular flow insights aid industrial design, beyond silos, beyond mixers. Anywhere granular materials flow, are transported, are processed, the insights from singing sand apply. Conveyor belts, hoppers, chutes, rotating drums, fluidized beds. All these devices move particles, and the way particles move affects everything. Efficiency, wear, energy consumption, product quality. Understanding synchronization, understanding friction, understanding the conditions that produce coherent flow versus chaotic flow helps engineers design better systems. More efficient, more reliable, more predictable. Singing sand teaches principles that translate, that generalize, that improve industrial processes worldwide. Singing sands model earthquake stick-slip behavior. This is profound, unexpected. The grinding of tectonic plates along faults, the buildup of stress, the sudden release, the earthquake. This is called stick-slip. The plates stick. Stress builds. Then they slip. Suddenly. Releasing energy. As seismic waves. As ground motion. As destruction. And it turns out, grain interactions in singing sand exhibit similar behavior. Stick-slip dynamics. At a much smaller scale. Much faster. But fundamentally similar physics. Grains lock together. Stress builds. They slip. Release energy. As vibration. As sound. The mechanism is analogous. The mathematics overlaps. So geophysicists study singing sand as a model system, a laboratory for understanding earthquakes, where they can control conditions, vary parameters, repeat experiments thousands of times. Things you can't do with real earthquakes, real faults, but you can do with sand, giving insights that might, one day, improve earthquake prediction, understanding, mitigation, a desert curiosity informing earthquake science, knowledge flowing in unexpected directions. Powder flowability metrics came from dune studies. In industry, you need to characterize powders. Predict how they'll behave. Will they flow freely? Or clump? Or stick? Or avalanche unpredictably? Some of the metrics, the measurement techniques, the conceptual frameworks for answering these questions emerged from singing sand research. The careful characterization of grain properties, the measurement of friction coefficients, the understanding of how moisture affects flow. Scientists studying why sand sings developed tools, methods, insights, and industry borrowed them. applied them to cement, to flour, to coffee grounds, to pharmaceutical powders, to anything granular. Pure research, becoming applied technology. Curiosity-driven science, yielding practical tools. Acoustic ceramics were inspired by musical sands. Materials scientists, exploring new possibilities. New functionalities. Asked, could we make materials that produce sound when they deform, when they flow, when they're stressed? And they looked to singing sand for inspiration, for principles, for proof that such materials are possible, that synchronization can emerge, that ordinary materials can become acoustic. This led to research into acoustic ceramics, smart materials that changed their acoustic properties in response to stress, to temperature, to electrical fields, applications, sensors, non-destructive testing, acoustic devices, materials that sing when they shouldn't, alerting you to damage, to failure, to problems. Singing sand as inspiration, as template for human innovation. Singing dunes act as natural physics laboratories. This is perhaps the most important point. These places are laboratories, free, accessible, maintained by nature, operating for millennia, where complex physics plays out, where we can observe, measure, learn, without having to build anything, without having to fund anything. Just show up with instruments, with curiosity, with questions. They teach us about synchronization, about collective behavior, about how simple rules produce complex phenomena, about emergence, about the way the whole becomes greater than the sum of parts. These are fundamental questions, deep principles that apply far beyond sand, to traffic flow, to crowd dynamics, to financial markets, to neural networks, to countless systems where many individual units interact. The dunes are patient teachers, always available, always demonstrating the same principles over and over for anyone willing to listen, willing to learn. The phenomenon bridges geology, acoustics, and engineering. This is rare, precious. Most scientific phenomena live in one discipline, one domain. But singing sand crosses boundaries, demands expertise from multiple fields. Geologists study the dunes, the formation, the structure. Acousticians study the sound, the frequencies, the propagation. Engineers study the applications, the industrial relevance, the practical implications. And they must talk to each other, collaborate, share insights, because no single discipline can solve this puzzle. can fully understand what's happening. It forces interdisciplinary work, breaking down silos, building bridges between fields. And in those bridges, in those collaborations, new ideas emerge, new perspectives, new breakthroughs. We've journeyed far together, from ancient legends to modern laboratories, from mystery to mechanism. But now, as we near the end, let's turn our attention to the future, to preservation, to what we might lose and what we might still discover. Breathe slowly, deeply. We're approaching the conclusion, the quiet end of our journey. But there are important things still to say. Tourism can silence dunes by compacting sand. This is a painful irony. People travel to experience the wonder, to hear the singing, to stand on these remarkable dunes and witness something extraordinary. But their presence can destroy what they came to see. Footsteps compress the sand, compact the surface, change the grain arrangement, disrupt the delicate organization that took centuries to develop. One person makes little difference. 100 people, perhaps, the dune can recover from. But thousands, tens of thousands, year after year, the impact accumulates. The surface hardens. The grains lock together. The moisture from breath and sweat permeates the sand. And slowly, incrementally, the singing fades, weakens, until one day, there's only silence. The very act of visiting can destroy. The very desire to experience can erase the experience for those who come after. It's a tragedy, common, repeated at natural wonders worldwide. Litter disrupts grain uniformity. Plastic bottles, food wrappers, cigarette butts, the thoughtless debris of human presence. Each piece a contamination, a disruption. Remember, singing sand requires purity, uniform grain sizes, clean contacts. But litter introduces foreign materials, objects that don't belong, that change the local properties, that prevent the synchronization. Even biodegradable litter, organic matter, causes problems. It retains moisture, creates local damp spots, changes the chemistry, and the singing in that area stops. It spreads. Wind buries the litter, distributes it, scatters the contamination through the dune, and the silent zones grow, expand, like a disease spreading through what was once pristine. Climate change alters moisture conditions. This is perhaps the most insidious threat, the most difficult to address, because it's global, pervasive, beyond individual control. Changing rainfall patterns, altered humidity, shifting temperature regimes, all affect whether sand stays dry enough to sing. Some regions are getting wetter, more humid, and dunes that sang for millennia are falling silent. The grains haven't changed. The dune structure remains. But the moisture, the crucial absence of water, is gone. And with it, the voice. Other regions are getting drier. You might think this would help. Create more singing dunes. But extreme dryness brings other problems. Increased dust, altered vegetation, changed wind patterns. The balance is delicate, and any change can tip it toward silence. But there is hope. There are solutions. Boardwalks help protect singing beaches. Simple structures, elevated paths that guide visitors along designated routes, keeping them off the sand, preventing compaction. People can still visit, still experience, still hear, but their impact is minimized, concentrated in specific areas, leaving the rest undisturbed, protected, able to sing. It's not perfect. Boardwalks themselves have impact. They cast shadows, change airflow, require maintenance. But it's better, far better, than unrestricted access, than letting thousands of feet trample freely. Conservation preserves acoustic ecosystems. This is a new idea, an emerging concept. We're used to conserving visual beauty, protecting landscapes, habitats, species. But acoustic environments, soundscapes, the characteristic sounds of a place, this is newer, less familiar, but equally important. Singing dunes are acoustic ecosystems, rare, fragile, worthy of protection, not just for what they look like, but for what they sound like, for the experience they provide, the wonder they inspire. Conservation efforts are starting, designating protected areas, limiting access, monitoring conditions, educating visitors, enforcing rules, slowly, carefully, trying to preserve these singing places for future generations, for the earth itself, for the simple principle that what is rare and beautiful and fragile deserves protection. Singing sands indicate healthy dune systems. This is an important insight, a diagnostic tool. A singing dune is more than just acoustically interesting. It's a sign of ecological health. Because for sand to sing, so many conditions must be right. The grains must be clean, well sorted. The dune must be active, undisturbed. The wind must be working. The moisture must be low. All of these also indicate a healthy, functioning dune ecosystem. Natural processes operating properly, without excessive human interference, without degradation. So the singing becomes a marker, an indicator. When the singing stops, it's a warning. Something has changed. Something is wrong. Time to investigate. Time to intervene. And when it continues, when the dunes still boom, it's reassurance. that this place is still wild, still natural, still itself. Future research may unlock new materials. We talked about this earlier. The applications, the inspiration. But the future holds even more. As our understanding deepens, as our tools improve, as our questions sharpen, imagine materials that self-organize, that synchronize, that produce sound, or light, or other emergent properties through the collective behavior of simple components. Inspired by singing sand, imagine sensors, more sensitive, more reliable, based on the principles of granular synchronization. Imagine construction materials that warn you acoustically when they're stressed, when failure approaches. Imagine art, sculptures that sing, architecture that resonates, landscapes designed to produce sound, all stemming from what we learned from desert dunes. The possibilities are vast, limited only by imagination and continued research, continued curiosity, continued listening. The phenomenon challenges how we understand sound. We think of sound as requiring instruments, vocal cords, vibrating strings, resonating chambers, deliberate design. But singing sand has none of these. It's not an instrument, not alive, not designed, just particles, following physics. And yet, it sings purely, beautifully, powerfully. It expands our conception of what sound can be, where it can come from, how it can emerge, from simplicity, from accident, from the inevitable workings of natural law. It reminds us that music doesn't require musicians, that harmony doesn't require intention, that beauty can be accidental, emergent, unplanned. And perhaps that's the most beautiful thing of all. What seems lifeless can sing under the right conditions. This is the philosophical heart, the deeper meaning. Sand is dead, inorganic, just rock fragments, broken crystals, mineral grains. No consciousness, no purpose, no life. And yet, under the right conditions, it sings. It produces something that moves us, that inspires wonder, that seems almost alive. It blurs the boundary between living and non-living, between intentional and accidental, between matter and meaning. It suggests that the world is richer than our categories, that animation and voice and expression aren't limited to what we call life, that everything under the right conditions has the potential to surprise us, to reveal unexpected depths, to sing. The singing sands remind us the earth still holds mysteries. This is perhaps the final lesson, the ultimate gift. In an age of satellites and sensors, of global mapping and instant information, of databases and algorithms that seem to know everything. We might think the world is fully known, fully explored, fully understood, every corner mapped, every phenomenon explained, every mystery solved. But it's not true. The singing sands prove it. This phenomenon has existed for millions of years. Billions of people have walked the earth. And yet, we still don't fully understand it. Still debate the mechanisms. Still discover new aspects. Right under our feet. In plain sight. A mystery that persists. That challenges us. That reminds us how much we don't know. And if singing sand remains mysterious, what else might be waiting? What other wonders are we walking past? What other mysteries are hiding in the ordinary? In the familiar? In the overlooked? The earth still has secrets, still holds mysteries, still surprises us. If we pay attention, if we listen, if we wonder. So as we come to the end of this journey, let yourself feel gratitude for the singing sands, for their beauty, their mystery, their lessons, for the scientists who study them, the conservationists who protect them, the travelers who seek them out, the earth that creates them, and for the simple fact that in a world that often feels completely known, completely mapped, completely explained, there are still things that make us wonder, that make us ask why, that make us listen. The singing sands are a gift, a reminder, an invitation to stay curious, to keep questioning, to never assume we know everything, to always listen for the earth's voice, because it's still speaking, still singing, in deserts, on beaches, in places we've been 1,000 times, in places we've never noticed. The world is alive with sound, with mystery, with wonder. If we just listen, breathe now, slowly, deeply, let the journey settle, let the wonder remain, let the questions linger. You've traveled through legends and science, through mystery and mechanism, through grains and dunes, and the invisible forces that make them sing. And now, as you drift towards sleep, let yourself remember that the earth sings, that sand, under the right conditions, finds its voice, that mystery still exists, that wonder is everywhere. Close your eyes. Let go. Let the world fade. And know that somewhere, right now, a dune is singing. The sand is flowing. The earth is speaking. And tomorrow, when you wake, the mysteries will still be there. Waiting. Calling. Inviting you to listen. To wonder. To explore. Rest now. Sleep well. And dream of singing sands. of deserts that boom, of beaches that squeak, of a world more magical than we ever imagined. Good night. Sleep peacefully, and may your dreams be filled with wonder. The singing sands bid you